Fort Carson, Colorado, February 2022. Multiple U.S. Army personnel stationed at one of the largest military installations in the country observe something in the sky they cannot explain. The object is described as potato-shaped, an ungainly term for something that reportedly demonstrated characteristics unlike any known aircraft. The witnesses are trained military observers. They file reports through official channels. Their testimony enters the system designed to catch exactly this kind of event. 2 years later, the Pentagon's own investigation would conclude it probably wasn't anything exotic, but that conclusion came with an asterisk that may matter more than the finding itself. To understand why the Fort Carson case matters, you need to understand the machinery that processed it. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, was established in July 2022 under Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. Its mandate: investigate unidentified anomalous phenomena reported by military personnel and the intelligence community. AARO inherited a backlog of cases from predecessor programs, and the Fort Carson incident was among them. Under the framework outlined in AARO's public reporting and congressional briefings, cases are sorted into categories. Those that resist conventional explanation are placed into what's been described as the Pursue archive, a subset of cases warranting continued investigation because initial analysis cannot resolve them. The details that have emerged through AARO's public case resolution documents and reporting by journalists including Matt Kean, Douglas Dean Johnson, and others tracking AARO's declassified case files paint a specific picture. Multiple Army witnesses independently described an object with unusual morphology, potato-shaped, not a sphere, not a disc, not a triangle, a rough, oblong form. The witnesses were consistent in their descriptions. The object was observed visually, and the multi-witness nature of the event gave it a degree of corroboration that single observer sightings lack. This wasn't one soldier glimpsing something through a foggy window. This was several trained personnel reporting the same anomalous object. AARO's analysts proposed a conventional explanation: snow reflection. The hypothesis suggests that atmospheric conditions and sunlight interacting with the snow-covered terrain around Fort Carson could have produced a visual artifact, something that appeared to be a solid object but was in effect an optical phenomenon. Here's where it gets significant. AARO rated this explanation with low confidence. In intelligence analysis, confidence levels are not arbitrary labels. They are structured assessments. Low confidence means the analysts themselves acknowledge that the available evidence did not robustly support their own proposed explanation. They offered it as the most likely prosaic possibility, but they could not confirm it.
This raises a fundamental question about how AARO weighs military testimony. When multiple trained observers report a consistent observation and the best conventional explanation achieves only low confidence, what does that tell us about the evidentiary standard being applied? AARO's methodology, as described in its public reports to Congress, prioritizes sensor data, radar returns, infrared imagery, electromagnetic signatures. Eyewitness testimony, even from trained military personnel, occupies a lower tier. In the Fort Carson case, there appears to have been limited corroborating sensor data. Without instruments confirming what the soldiers saw, AARO's framework defaults towards skepticism, even when the human evidence is consistent and multi-sourced. The Fort Carson case reportedly sits among those that AARO has not fully resolved. In congressional briefings and public reporting, AARO has acknowledged a subset of cases where conventional explanations are insufficient. These cases enter continued analysis. The term pursue has been used in connection with this unresolved category. According to AARO's fiscal year reports, a meaningful percentage of cases remain unresolved, not because they are definitively anomalous, but because the evidence is insufficient to close them either way. The Fort Carson incident lives in that uncomfortable middle ground, not confirmed as exotic, not convincingly explained as mundane. This structure is not unique. Compare Fort Carson to other unresolved military encounters. The 2004 Nimitz incident, multiple witnesses, some sensor data, no definitive conventional explanation decades later. The USS Roosevelt encounters of 2014 and 2015, repeated observations by Navy pilots, infrared video, objects that appeared to defy known aerodynamic behavior. The Langley Air Force Base drone incursions of late 2023, multiple nights of observations over a sensitive military installation, objects that authorities publicly stated they could not identify. The common thread is not proof of exotic technology. It's the persistent gap between what military personnel report and what analytical frameworks can confirm or deny. Intelligence professionals understand that low confidence is not dismissal. It is an admission of uncertainty. When the Director of National Intelligence publishes assessments on geopolitical threats, low-confidence findings are treated as unresolved, warranting continued collection and analysis. The same standard should logically apply here. If AARO's own analysts cannot muster moderate or high confidence in a snow reflection explanation for what multiple Army witnesses reported at a major U.S. military installation, then the case remains genuinely open. The intellectual honesty of that low confidence rating may be more important than the explanation itself. It means the system is, at minimum, acknowledging what it does not know. The Fort Carson case will not, by itself, resolve the UAP question.
But it is a precise example of why the question persists. Trained military witnesses, consistent testimony, an official investigation that produced only a low-confident conventional explanation, and a system that, by design, ranks sensor data above human observation, even when the sensors weren't there to collect. As Congress continues to legislate greater transparency through UAP provisions in successive National Defense Authorization Acts and the ongoing work of the Senate and House Oversight Committees, cases like Fort Carson become test cases. Not for what was in the sky over Colorado in February 2022, but for whether the investigative architecture built to answer these questions is actually capable of doing so. The Pentagon's analysts looked at this case and effectively said, "We're not sure." That uncertainty deserves to be taken seriously, not as evidence of aliens, but as evidence that the work is not finished.